And I said, well, no. I mean, firstly, I, I could, it's a, I describe it to others in describing this process of saying, if I knew what the lottery numbers were on the Sunday, you know, I would have
Hmm.
chosen those numbers on the Saturday. Do you know what I mean? But
Yes.
I, but because I'm ignorant and I made mistakes, I didn't make those mistakes to harm people. You know, if I harmed anyone, I didn't do that. I did that out of ignorance, and as I grew, I didn't make those mistakes again. So I have no regrets.
Yes, I understand.
Do
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So then I have no regrets because I know the nature that I didn't. I would have done it the same, given the
Hmm.
same information and the same path. I would have
Hmm.
made the same thing. So
Yes.
to me, it was fairly simple. And then you go into another alternative life.
Mm.
And you could call it temptation, but you also could call it a perfect life.
Mm.
So in that life I married somebody. I was asked to go into business with someone who sold out for 70 million.
Mm.
And they sold to PMI Baby. They set up an airline. And I seen that life and what that life would have brought.
Mm.
And and it was a hell of a life, right?
Yes.
Then this thing inside you that asked the question, do you now have any regrets? And I said, well, that would mean I'd never married Tracy. I'd never have
Mm.
my son Matthew and Jade.
Yeah.
How could I
Yes.
deny their very existence? So then you move on, but this happens in an instant. It's like
Ye-
weird. You struggle with space and time being still.
Yes.
Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? It's like that.
Yes.
But then
Yes.
then I became my mother, and then there were things like the ring, and I seen a wedding ring, and I asked her what happened with the wedding ring, and one night after my father died fairly young, he died when I was 8. And one night when she woke up in the night, her wedding ring was on a pillow. No, she couldn't take it off because it was that tight. And she said to me, "Well, how did you know about that?" Do you know what I mean? And I said about the
Yeah.
ring, the kid, and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
lived her life, and
Uh,
there were little bits of issues that I had with my mum. I didn't think that she allowed the children to grieve properly when my father dropped dead.
mm.
Um, we weren't allowed to go to the funeral. Uh, she was selfish in her grief. Because she grieved so hard, she became selfish in that grief.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
whether you understand that. And of
I certainly
course,
do.
that's right. And so that is selfish in you. Oh me, why is this happened to me?
Hmm.
And then I realized that this was the nature of my mother, and it was handed down. So I became her. I felt her. I forgived her. I knew her. I was her.
But
I
this
loved
must be a
her.
blossoming of compassion.
Absolutely, because you cannot have love without forgiveness. So those little things I was saying, oh, you could have done better, mum, or like blah blah blah. Of course, all that's gone. I can love
Mm.
her unconditionally. My mother did the best that she could do.
Yes.
You know what I
Given
mean?
given the circumstances and the
That's it.
information she had. Yes.
And then you begin to understand about the generations of how the ego is delivered and the pain is delivered throughout the generations.
Mm.
So you become her mother or
Mm.
or other people in those lives. And
Mm.
so all of a sudden, that you see, it brings this concept to
Yeah.
life, which is a very unpalatable concept, but it's a concept. Time is
Mm.
still.
Mm.
And so you say that an abused child 80% of those abused children will end up abusing other children. If time is still, who is the abuser?
Yeah.
Which point of time do you choose? and who is the abuser.
Mm.
And so we live in an age, where it takes you back to the original break-in and this disconnection from nature. And I think there's another question coming out on a similar theme, but I wrote to Michael Tessarian about this current age of the Mayan calendar, this murder, death, kill age, the age of separation. And the ego and pain and suffering are handed down through the generation. This
Oh,
is my
yes.
understanding. So this pain and suffering through the generation is handed down, is handed down, is handed down. And only when you break that cycle can you spiritually grow, or whatever, you grow within yourself. And only through suffering can you grow anyway.
Mm.
In this
Mm.
in this current age, anyway.
Yes.
In
Yes.
this current age.
And then how do you experience that that these near-death experiences, you came back in to this life with a mission and with a purpose, and
Yeah.
then you have these extraordinary powers of energy transfer?
No. I think that what it is I understand it, and I can show people it, and they can do it for themselves. And it's quite simple. It's very simple to demonstrate. All the children on my street could do it. And there are a number of stories that when we get to that stage, I'll be able to tell you about. So but at the time it was very difficult because I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I used to sit on the floor, and I'd sit on the floor and I would rock back and forth for 5. So you go one, like a metronome.
Yes.
So you'd tick forwards and back 6 times, or no, 5 times it was. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'd stop upright and you'd tick back and forth 15 times. And then you stop and you tick back and forth. So you'd be rocking back and forth. So I thought it was like some sort of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, or motor neuron disease, because I just couldn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And then I could hold energy bars and push them into the floor and lock out magnetic fields.
Yeah.
So in Avebury, when the dowsing rods were spinning, I was chucking these rods into the floor and it would stop them from spinning. And I'm going, well, I didn't even know I could do it. Do you know what I mean? It's like as though this rebirth actually disconnected me from either recharged me in energetic terms, or I didn't come back knowing the old bar way, but I understood that I don't even know what I did understand. To be honest, I didn't know what I was. To be honest, I was so. Well, firstly, I was so ill, and it took 5 years to recover from 96. So I lost a decade of my life.
Yeah.
So that was and there were a lot of implications, financially, and then I took nearly 3 years off work, not that I could, in terms of finding a job, to carry on the research. So these were. It's like as though, well, I don't care anymore. I know I'm going to die. I know there's no hassle in it. It's pretty cool, actually. This place is very evil because you can feel the evil leaking out of people.
Yeah.
But then it's not them evil. It is just the generation that we're in. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So what you would be sort of receiving from people as you stood in the queue in Tesco's or Walmart, you have Walmart in America, you would be feeling the energy of their suffering.
Yes, it's a perfect way of saying it. Perfect way of saying it. And
So
I think that people also naturally seek out people like you that are transmitting energy all the time anyway. They're attracted to you unconsciously.
Well, we did. We had a phase of there was there was a young man, a very young man, who I used to take a group of them fishing. I fostered. Well, was going to adopt one of them. You know, they had a no. They just sort of came to through the door. It's like really weird. You know, they're sort
Mm,
of like turning up into. But the one was yeah, he was fascinating. His father used to drink and be very violent, and I could never understand why he turned up at my door at 11 o'clock. And of course, it was when the pubs were emptying.
that's right.
So he would
Yeah.
just turn up at the door. He would wait until his father had gone to sleep and the beating of his mother had gone. I mean, he had his shotguns taken off him, and he'd sit with me and he'd just sit there. He wouldn't say,
Mm,
"I go, do you want tea?" And he'd go, yeah, I'll have tea." And that's all. But the door was open, you know, and it was like they just came, and it was a very strange time, you know. They were just like the woman next door said, "Why are all these children coming to your home?" And I couldn't understand it. They
mm,
just, you know, some of them were friends, and some of them were friends of Nick, who I did healing on, who I'll talk about later. So he had twins and a son, and the son knew them all. So, but they just seemed to just seemed to come. You know, so they
yeah.
did come to. I don't know whether it was coming to that energy or whether it was just it was a safe place for them. You know,
Or both.
or both. You know.
Yes. Well, thank you, Paul. It's always fascinating to hear these kind of stories, and thank you for sharing this with us.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing really quickly. Is sometimes the energy, the connection is going a little bit, but we're convinced that it's your energy that's causing some disruption, and we're all feeling uh, some energy coming through. So I just wanted
when
to point that out for the listeners.
Well, John was laughing. He said, "You should have seen the lights in the corner of my house." So and
Yeah,
because you know, we just chuckle over it because we've done
yeah,
some crazy. Well, it's crazy. It is.
yes,
You know, sometimes it's crazy because you just. And one of the healings, I'll tell you why I stopped healing for years, because it did my head in. You know, it was just like, that can't happen.
hmm,
You know what I mean?
yes, I do.
It just so that shouldn't be happening. You know?
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate your lovely
Yeah,
answer. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Uranus Rising. Hello, Paul. This is
Oh yeah,
Gemini. How are
yeah.
you? And I
All
would have
right.
to agree with Uranus Rising. We can definitely feel your energy this evening.
Yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
I have a question for you from one of our forum members, Green Meadow, and she would like to know that there is a period, and she read this in your book, a period during the Maunder minimum when there was an increase in sightings of unexplained lights.
Yeah,
And she wants to know what you thought was going on at that time, and are we
yeah,
headed for another period where we will see more unexplained lights?
yeah. I would, uh, I would say that this is definite, that we are going to be seeing more of these the Orb bar wave. It was recorded uh, in, as I say, the basal woodcut of 1561 and 1565, and that was in during the Maunder minimum, or to the tail end of the Little Ice Age, as it was known.